Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are extremely excited to talk about how you can grow your business globally on Amazon. And a few quick intros before we dive in. So one, I'm Daniel. I'm from the product marketing team here at Similarweb. I recently joined the Shopper Intelligence Pod, and I help the sales and marketing teams here at Similarweb who are working with customers within the retail and CPG space, helping them to tell compelling stories using our data. I've been at Similarweb now close to 6 years, and previously I led our content marketing department and covered all the content that was needed for events, marketing collateral for programs and campaigns related to, again, e-commerce and retail audiences.
And hi everyone, my name is Sayam. I'm based in our London office and I'm the senior solution manager for our Amazon Intelligence solution and also our cross retail intelligence. I manage the solution strategy and the commercials. Now, before joining Similarweb, so I've been here for about 2 years, but before joining Similarweb, I was leading e-commerce strategy for a large consumer goods organization in EMEA.
Great. So before we dive in and get started, I just want to make sure you're aware of what we've got lined up for today. One, we'll begin with talking about the recent global tariffs that President Trump imposed and how they've shifted sales across various categories and product lines, as well as the macro trends that we're already seeing. Then we're going to explore what's happening in other key global markets and deep dive into a few standout categories, as well as one winning brand that you can definitely learn a lot from. And we'll share some actionable tips to help you with your promotional planning, including some new features that can help you during Prime Day. And finally, we'll take your questions. So please feel free to drop them in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll go through them all at the end. And if we don't get to them, we will for sure get back to you with those answers following the webinar itself, which, by the way, is recorded, and we will be sending that out as well. Okay, so let's get started. First, it would really help us to understand your challenges. So here's a quick poll. Let us know where global expansion fits into your strategy today. Okay, great. So, yeah, a little bit more, a few more responses there. Okay, great. So 70%, I can see the majority of you by far have responded that you're exploring new options. That's really interesting. Sam, what's your take on that?
I think it makes sense, right? When we were planning for the webinar, we were discussing headwinds in the US and all the ambiguity out there. So there's so much opportunity outside of the US right now. And it's good because there's a lot of relevant stuff for our audience here going into global expansion.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully we'll be able to share some insights now that can help clarify how to do that exactly on Amazon. We're seeing it everywhere. Markets are shifting, product prices are changing, and new threats such as tariffs and not necessarily threats, and it's a threat and opportunity, but also AI is really shifting how consumers are behaving, and everything is happening a lot faster than it did in the past. In reality, you can't control when these changes in the market are going to hit or how they'll shake things up. But here's what you can control: how quickly you and your company understands what's happening and how confidently you and your team respond to that. And to do so effectively, you want to be able to have the type of data that lets you turn early consumer insights and signals into strategic business decisions. And of course, you need to have that before your competitors do, so that way you can win that market share. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Similarweb, we are the world's leading digital data company, and we provide data, tools, and insights that are helping businesses all over the world to win and grow online. Within that, our Shopper Intelligence, which is our solution specifically for understanding marketplace data, we have competitive intelligence that spans across a wide range of data sources. With Shopper Intelligence, you can see over 43,000 Amazon categories, as well as an unlimited amount of custom categories that you can create on your own based off of your own business needs, and over 110,000 listed products, and more than 22 million products, as well as 40 million on-site keywords that are all across 6 Amazon domains. In addition to that, we have a specific data sets that allows you to understand what's happening on leading retailer websites that goes way beyond Amazon, including eBay, Walmart, Target, and many others in both the US and the UK at the moment. And later on, we intend to add other non-English markets as well. What makes shopper intelligence unique is the depth and freshness of our data. Our customers can analyze either weekly or monthly shopper data across any category they're interested in or brand or product, allowing them to spot trends early on and adjust their e-commerce strategies as needed in real time. And this is all empowered by Similarweb's panel data, which is the largest online consumer behavior panel available. With our recent updates, which we just rolled out now in May, relatively recently, we actually have a wider range of analysis capabilities. If you're looking to monitor your market size and share, if you're looking to see insights into what your category assortment should be including or what it's missing, or if you're hoping to grow your traffic on Amazon or to learn how to grow your traffic based off what you're seeing on Amazon, as well as uncovering what your competitors are doing and where consumer demand is growing the most, you have all of that and much more with the most actionable data with Shopper Intelligence. And we'll come back to that shortly to show you what that looks like. But for now, I'm going to pass it back to you, Sam, to walk us through how all of this relates to tariffs and, of course, to how you can expand into new markets on Amazon.
Thanks, Daniel. So let's get into our first section. So we'll talk about tariffs and we'll talk about how that's impacting pricing on Amazon and what are the macro trends around it. So going into this, now, there's been a lot of information online on price increases around tariffs and if that has resulted in a change in behavior when shopping on Amazon. So what we wanted to do is really cut through the clutter and see, is demand cooling on Amazon US because of tariffs or not? So what you're seeing on the slide here is on the left, we have Jan to May 2025 compared to the previous year, the same time frame, so Jan to May 2024. And as you can see, the GMV, the total retail sales on Amazon US have actually gone up. So they've gone from 183 billion to 194 billion, showing about a 5.7% increase. So retail sales are up. And the next level you can see in units sold, those are also up by about 5.7%. Now, ASP, our average pricing on Amazon, is actually flat. It's the same as last year at $27. So this is the average price across all of Amazon, all categories, brands, and products. Now, what is driving this behavior? We see that there is growth in the 3P business on Amazon, but 1P model is flat right now. So retail sales on 1P flat, 3P are growing. There's a slight bump in conversion rate, a small one at 30 bips, but the Amazon US assortment continues to increase. So we're seeing currently around an average of 42 million ASINs listed per month, which is up by 6% compared to last year. Now, as we kind of progress through this year, what do we need to watch out for? There's so many things happening. There's new inventory starting to enter the market now, and presumably this inventory will be higher priced now as the effect of tariffs really kick in. So far, we know most brands keep a 2 to 3 month inventory in the country. So all of that was previously regularly priced inventory. We're also entering a 4-day Prime Day, and we'll discuss a little bit more on this later. And another thing we are keeping a close eye on is the changes in retail media spend. Will brands protect margin and reduce their investment in Amazon ads, or will they double down on Amazon ads? So that is a very, very interesting space, and it's TBC. But one thing I did want to highlight is overall, Amazon.com website traffic has actually decreased by 2%. So we're not seeing that year-over-year increase in the website traffic. We do see some nuances within movement across different product pages, but the overall website traffic is down by 2%. And that's also an interesting space to watch if it will lead to reduced demand or not. Now, in order to understand this topic better, we looked at the average pricing per category. So we have highlighted here 14 of the main categories on Amazon US, which represent roughly 90% of the overall retail sales from the website. What's interesting is out of these 14 categories, 10 have seen a decline in average selling price, and actually only 4 categories have seen an increase in average selling price when compared to year over year, Jan to May. Now you will see the anomaly here is the electronics category, which has seen a price increase of 21%. Everything else is in a small margin. The bigger nuances start to show up in 1P versus 3P difference. So you'll see here a few of those categories highlighted, the year over year pricing highlighted in orange. That for the first one, appliances, the 1P year over year pricing actually increased by 9%, and the 3P year over year pricing reduced by 9.6%. So they're both trending in different directions. And this is a trend we've seen across multiple categories. So it's appliances, it's cell phones, clothing, shoes, and jewelry, home and kitchen office products, and also pet, uh, patio, lawn and garden, and tools and home improvement. Across all of them, 1P pricing is increasing and 3P pricing, 3P prices is decreasing, or at least not increasing as much as 1P. So that's an interesting movement we noticed, and a lot to do around how the two business models are priced out and the product mix within those two. Now, following from this, we wanted to do a deep dive to thoroughly understand the topic. What is the like to like ASIN level pricing? So what we did was we looked at the top 1000 ASINs on Amazon US, compared their pricing from Jan to May 2025 versus Jan to May 2024. And the reason for this is so far we've seen overall across all of Amazon, the pricing was flat at $27. Across different categories, we saw some movements up and down and some differences in 1P, 3P. But really, to take product mix out of the equation and see like to like product pricing, if that is trending up or down, what is that? So for these 1000 products, we split them across different price segments. So you have the low price segment, products which are below $50 in purple. Then you have the medium price segment in red, which are products priced between $50 to $200. And then you have the high in orange, and products are priced between 200 to 500. And then you have the premium segment, which is in blue, products priced above 500. So it was only the low price segment in purple which actually saw a price increase. These were about 35% of the products, so 350 roughly out of the 1000, and they saw a marginal price increase at 1%. All the other three price segments actually saw a price decline, with the premium segment seeing the maximum decline of minus 6%. So on an overall basis, across these 1000 SKUs, 57% saw a price decrease and 40% saw a price increase. The rest were relatively stable. Now, one thing which we know to be true is that price volatility has increased. So the number of price changes per SKU happening are a lot more. So there is a dynamic pricing element at play, and that is true for 1P and 3P. This has only increased since last year. So one of the things to consider as we plan for the rest of the year and Prime Day. Now, to summarize our first section, now, for brands to lead their category and keep winning in 2025, there's some good things that they need to focus on. First is pricing smarter. How can you leverage competitive benchmarks? How can you understand price elasticity better and protect your margin as this gets into higher pressure going into Q3? Second one is acting on weekly sales signals. We saw that the price volatility has increased, so monitoring these trends on a fresher and more granular basis is key, whether you're doing it at an overall portfolio level or an individual SKU level. Uh, what is also an interesting exercise is to really monitor your organic rank on a daily basis as prices fluctuate on your ASINs. Now, going into the next two sections here, Daniel will cover where the demand is moving. So, what are the markets which are growing outside of Amazon US? What are the categories we want to look at? And then in the last one, we'll discuss the promotional events. So, how to plan for Prime Day in a few weeks and monitor your performance in a post-primed analysis.
Thank you, Sam. I unmuted myself. Given the clear opportunity that you've just outlined in terms of the price volatility that is growing and the changes that are taking place due to tariffs, the next part of our session is going to focus on the where and the how you should be expanding. We're going to look at where shopper demand is moving the most, and in particular, what new consumer behaviors we're seeing most recently. And just as importantly, we're going to look at a few ways in which brands can successfully capture market demand, as well as an example of one standout brand that is doing an amazing job in one of Amazon's fastest growing markets. So let's talk about Amazon's global opportunity. The US is obviously Amazon's biggest market, as Sam also pointed out, with annual retail sales of around 500 billion. That's almost double the total GMV of all other key markets that we've analyzed combined. But here's the catch. The US growth rate is just over 6%. That makes it much harder for new sellers to enter the market and also to sell in a way that they can grow consistently. Now, compare that to some of the smaller markets. In Canada, we can see that there is a 24% year-over-year growth. It's a massive growth rate. And in the UK, it's 15%. Germany and Italy also have double-digit growth at 14 and 12%. So whether you're already active in these markets or thinking about where to expand next outside the US, this is where you want to start because it's, as we can see here, these markets on average have almost 3 times a higher growth rate year over year than the US at an average of 14.3%. Another important signal here is the share of third-party sellers, which is over 50%, sorry, in all of these regions and almost 60% in Canada. That tells us these are open, competitive markets that aren't being dominated by 1P players and that their new sellers actually have an opportunity to enter the market. And to understand where these opportunities actually, what they actually look like, we're now going to zoom into two of the biggest markets, which is the UK and Germany. So UK, as we saw in just a second ago, is the second largest market outside the US after Germany, and has seen significant growth in the last 12 months. And we're going to talk a little about what that looks like. So as I mentioned, the growth rate is 15.8%. What that translates into is an increase from 77.8 billion in sales to 90.2 billion. And what's driving that growth? It's actually everything. We can see it in an increase in traffic, in ASP, and also in conversions. In fact, over the past 12 months, there was a 7.8% year-over-year increase in traffic, which is now at 21.7 billion views. And there's been a 5.1% increase in average selling price, which correlates to the growth that we're seeing in the share of traffic of 1P sellers. Now, if you remember, the average ASP that Sam mentioned earlier for the US is flat at $27. So this tells us that here in the UK, there has actually been a combined effect, or we can assume there's been a combined effect of both price inflation and a greater product mix towards higher priced items, which is specifically more prominent than what we're seeing in the US. Also, we're seeing a clear increase in advertising activity, and that rise in paid click share reflects a very clear increase in retail media over the past year across brands on Amazon UK. So to summarize, the market is growing with a clear increase in all KPIs, but advertising here remains competitive since brands, both IP and 3P, are spending more to stay visible. For Germany, we're seeing a similar story with a small difference, and that is as we can see here, that when we look at the key drivers of Amazon Germany's growth, two things stand out. First, we can see that 34 billion product views in the past year. That's a 7.4% jump in traffic from the previous year. So it's very similar to what we saw in the UK. In fact, exactly the same percentage. But here's a key difference. Unlike the UK, within Amazon Germany, conversion rate is actually much lower. So even though it's grown over the past 12 months, it's still just 7.9%. Another important difference is the average selling price. Just like in the US, it hasn't really moved. It's remained flat, and it's at $45. So it's higher, significantly higher than the US, but it hasn't grown. So in Germany, just like in the UK, 3P share is shrinking. So as a comparison, if in the US market, it's actually 65%, as Sam also mentioned earlier, there is a significant opportunity for 3P sellers to shift towards Amazon Germany and to come in at a lower price point and take some of the market share there. Lastly, an important trend that we're seeing is paid clicks. The average share of paid clicks in Germany is 26%. And that growth lines up with a wider shift in the market toward increased retail media investment, which, as we saw earlier, is also the case in the UK. And in reality, it's the case across all of the key markets in Europe. So why does all this matter? Because there's a significant opportunities for both brands and sellers to tap into Amazon Germany if you aren't already, and to find growth areas specific to your business and to your and tailor your tactics accordingly. One way to understand the competitiveness of this market and the kind of growth opportunity is by looking at the cosmetics category. Now, this is one of the highest grossing categories in Germany in the last 12 months, with 106 million units sold and over 2.2 billion euros in revenue. It's a very, very big market. And we can see that the top three subcategories that are driving that growth are hair care and styling, skincare, and body care, each one of which sold over 20 million units and all had double-digit growth in this time frame. And despite seeing a slight dip in revenue, which we can see here is 2.2 billion, the product views for this category are actually up, with a 4.3% increase in conversion rate, further confirming that the consumer demand in this market is very, very high. Now, can you guess which brand is winning this category? Feel free to write in the chat. Um, Love to hear your thoughts. Well, I don't know if you're surprised as we are, but the actual category winner is CeraVe. And that might come as a bit of a surprise. It's not one of the bigger names such as Old Spice or a local German beauty brand such as Nivea. It's actually a pharma dermatology brand. CeraVe, which is owned by L'Oreal, is twice not only in the top 10, but in the top 5 products for May 2025, looking at Similarweb's shopper intelligence. So their foaming cleanser took the #1 spot in the category, selling over 240,000 units and had a solid 2.6% year-over-year growth. Their retinol serum, which also is, as I said, in the top 10, landed at #6, further showcasing that they are leading this category and are the winning brand. Now, what this tells us is that they have a smart portfolio strategy that is diverse, and they clearly have a strong brand demand and recognition, enough so that they can actually lead the broader cosmetics category, despite the fact that they are actually a skincare or primarily a skincare brand. And the question is why? To answer that, we looked at multiple sources that could point to the reason for this growth. First, we looked at Google. Now, using our web intelligence platform, we can see that it had a significant amount of search on Google. In fact, CeraVe related branded search terms were in total 203 million times searched on Google Germany. But the year before that, it was even higher. It was at 4 million searches. So what we also see here on the left-hand side is an interesting spike in May 2024. That is the only month that had a year-over-year growth on Google. Otherwise, most of the year traffic was either slightly lower than the previous year, but in most cases, correlating in terms of the trend throughout the year. Now, to understand the reason for this spike, even though we are humans, it's great to take advantage of AI, as I mentioned earlier, and we used Similarweb's new AI agent to look at Trend Analyzer. And this allowed us to understand the actual trends responsible for this spike. One in particular stood out, and that is hydrating cleanser with over 1,090% growth. And this specific product, which seems to be a niche within the skincare product line, is something that CeraVe seems to be the main brand capturing that demand. How do we know that? Because when we look at the next step in the customer journey, where consumers go after searching on Google, we see that only half of people searching for CeraVe land on its own DTC website. The rest are captured either by top retailers in Germany, such as Shop Apotheke, Amazon, and Douglas, and some also continue to its YouTube channel to learn more. Now, you might think that Shop Apotheke is the #2 biggest destination after its own website. But in reality, as we all know, most consumers, or a large portion of consumers, actually start their journey on Amazon and not on Google. And because of this, we know that Amazon captured a much larger portion of consumer demand for this brand. And let's look at that in the next slide. What we see here is that when we combine a set of keywords or branded keywords around CeraVe on Amazon, that actually has more search volume than Google. In fact, 2.8 million branded searches last year. And here also, the trend is below the previous year. So it is, in that regard, losing a little bit of that trend in terms of traffic. But it indicates that Amazon is their number one product discovery channel. And that even though Google is also very important, it's not that far behind, but it showcases the distribution of their acquisition in both across Amazon and Google, with both of which playing a key role in their ability to build their brand recognition. What happens after searching on Amazon? So what we wanted to understand here is, do they actually win that search traffic and turn that into actual sales? And what we can see here that they did an amazing job is that 94% of clicks that people search for CeraVe actually and landed on the brand itself. And among the small share, just around 6%, that was captured by competitors, we actually see that its own parent company, L'Oreal, is in that list as well, with 0.7%. So there's no significant funnel leakage happening here. People came looking for the brand, but it's also important to pay attention to the fact that 34% of that was paid, meaning CeraVe still needed to pay in order to ensure that they will land on their page. And the reason for that is twofold, right? They couldn't just rely on the fact that they're going to optimize the content within their pages. They need to also ensure that they're attracting people to their new products, right? Sorry, firstly, they want to protect their brand against competitors who are trying to capture that branded search intent. For example, when a brand is in high demand, such as CeraVe, other players, especially lower cost disruptors, want to compete for that demand. And then secondly, as I said, attracting people to its new products by drawing them into the pages and the products that they're already familiar with. For example, as we see here at the bottom, it's using one of its high demand CeraVe foaming cleansers, which is, again, the top product in the category. It's investing over 60% of traffic to this specific product, right? Paid traffic. But as we can see here, there's no month-over-month change, which means that this is clearly a new product that they're trying to push. So to summarize what they're doing and what you can learn, CeraVe's growth strategy and success in Germany's cosmetics category is heavily reliant on Amazon, not only, but it definitely is a key driver for their growth. And at the same time, they're striking a smart balance between both their direct traffic and their retail distribution, which is focused, as I said, primarily on Amazon. And they're making sure that their brand shows up first within the marketplace, both organically through optimized pages that are arriving to their brand pages, and more importantly, by investing in retail media to stay ahead of competitors and to ensure that they're capturing that demand. Okay, so with that, I am going to pass it back to you, Sayam, and we can cover any questions you guys have on this at the end of our session. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. So in us section 3, which is the last section here, we'll talk a little bit about promotional planning. Since it's top of mind for everyone, Prime Day is coming up in a few weeks, but we want to talk about Prime Day, but generally promotional planning, moving on from Prime Day as well, going into the holiday season afterwards. So we'll do a quick poll. And the question is, how are you approaching Prime Day? We've got 4 options here. So if you can just go ahead and choose one, so everyone in the audience basically can get a sense of what is the kind of the state of Prime Day planning. We'll give it a few more seconds if you haven't answered yet. Okay. Shall we see the answers? Daniel, do you have the answers?
Yes, sorry. We see that 58% are driving pricing promotions while advertising to increase paid traffic. That is by far the
So that's interesting that most people are continuing with the approach of pricing discounts along with advertising. So that is a considerable promotional budget behind Prime Day, especially thinking that now it's a 4-day event. So let's talk about that in a little bit more detail as we go through these slides. Now, firstly, Prime Day is a 4-day event. So for the first time ever, so from July 8th to July 11th. Now, this does open up unique opportunities for brands to understand how they can promote over a 4-day period. Can they get incremental sales? how much budget do they need to invest. So a lot of questions they can answer, a lot of opportunity they can go after. But there are also certain concerns that we've seen, concerns such as, will there be consumer fatigue in a 4-day event? Will there actually be an incremental amount of sales after the 4-day event? So to give you guys an idea, last year, Amazon Prime Day 2-day event in July had about $13 billion of sales in the US. So this year, the expectation is for it to go higher, but not necessarily double what it was last year. Now, the question here is, how can brands maximize this opportunity for a 4-day event? So we're touching on four things. We're touching on the strategic pricing for specific products. This is in line with our section one, where we talked about a lot more volatility in pricing. So thinking about dynamic pricing, moving it in real time based on consumer demand, and making sure all the products you're promoting, that the pricing for those products and your organic rank, you're monitoring those over the course of 4 days and using some real-time data. Similarweb also shares some real-time data during the Prime Day event. The second one is identifying pre-event consumer trends. One of the things we've seen in analysis is that search interest starts to go up a few weeks to a month before Prime Day. And a lot of this search interest is actually not converting because people are waiting for the Prime Day event sale to go on. So it's great to dive into those keyword search volume analysis to understand what's already peaking ahead of the Prime Day. We'll touch on this in a bit more detail. Third one is optimizing retail media spend. And this is not just a retail media spend during the 4 days of Prime Day, but also before and after Prime Day. There's certain unique opportunities. And this is, again, something we'll touch on. And lastly, tailoring your assortment, having a very fixed, focused plan on Prime Day, but any other promotional period going into it. Now, how can you spot those trends? It's not just about discounts, but also about riding the wave of consumer demand. How quickly can you pick up on a specific consumer demand? Here we've got the example of the viral Labubu phenomenon. I don't know if you guys have seen that or heard that, but there's a quick video for you to see. You can see in the graph, which is for the last 12 months, that into a 3-month period, that's when we started to see this demand pick up. And towards the end of it, it had grown quite exponentially, both in search volume and clicks. And what you really want to do is be ahead of the curve, really pick that demand. This is just one example, but in every category, in every subcategory, there are certain trends which start to peak before Prime Day, before a specific seasonal event or a tentpole event, and that's what we want to pick up. On the next slide, we have something very interesting here, and you'll have to bear with me because this is a little bit complicated. Now, what we did was we looked at the top 50 keywords for July Prime Day 2024, keywords which had the maximum search volume during the event. Now, for these specific 50 keywords, we mapped out the search volume in blue and the paid click share in green for the full year 2024, just to see that for these specific keywords, what happened before and after the Prime Day. Now, we look at 4 specific timeframes. So the first one is May. And here you can see that the search volume started to increase. So in blue, you can see the search volume, that it had started to increase, and the paid click share was at the peak. So by paid click share, I mean the number of paid clicks out of overall clicks for these keywords. So just because the paid click share is high and the search volume is starting to grow, not quite there, it's an expensive time to advertise. Then a couple of months forward, going into July, so the event of Prime Day. So search volume is actually at its highest. It's peaking here, and the peak is massive. So this year with the 4-day event, we think the peak will be even bigger and even longer. But this massive peak coincides with a lower paid click share. And the reason is there's a lot more organic consumer demand. So there are a lot more organic clicks, and hence the paid click share reduces. Great. This is a very good time to advertise, to capitalize on that organic consumer demand. Even if you think that everyone's advertising and it might be expensive during Prime Day. It's actually the opposite, that the overall organic demand is so high that there is no saturation of paid advertising during Prime Day. Then, coming out of Prime Day in August, search volume is still high. Not as high as obviously Prime Day, but still relatively high. Same as what it was in June. But you'll see that the paid click share has reduced. So a lot of brands have reduced their spending coming out of Prime Day. They've taken their deals off. They've removed the ad spend. But this is why the paid click share is lower. So this is again a good time to advertise, just because the general trend is brands are reducing advertising, but there's still that organic demand left. Then the next one, we'll jump into October 24. And by October 24, we have the second Prime Day come through, and search volume is coming up again, not as high as the July Prime Day, but people have started to advertise. Now, at this Prime Day, it's actually expensive to advertise because search volume, even though it's coming up, it's not as high as it was in July, but people advertise a similar amount. So it's much more expensive to advertise. The reason we bring this up is that you can be smart about how you invest your budget, how you allocate your budget before, during, and after Prime Day, and then really thinking about your offering. You probably don't want to have the same offering in July Prime Day and October Prime Day, because then it's a different set of consumer trends which are starting to peak. You've got your holiday season coming up, you've got Halloween coming up, back to school. So a very different seasonal trends as opposed to July. Now, let's look into, as you start to plan, execute, and then also analyze your pre and post performance, you can use shop intelligence to really build those tailored product groups. So you're really analyzing your very specific campaigns, what happened during specific promotional assortments and focus areas. And you have a lot of flexibility to define these the way you want to, and create a closed set of competitors. You can save these and then replicate these, come back to these in future uh, sales events or promotional events as well. And lastly, once Prime Day is over or the sales event is over, you can do a deep dive post-mortem analysis by looking at what was your market share for that promotional event, how pricing worked for you versus your competitors, what keywords peaked, and how your product visibility fared compared to your competitors. So it's all about that kind of competitive view. Did you do well as your competitors? Did you do well as the entire category? And really defining those best practices coming out of that for future promotional campaigns. Now, speaking of Prime Day, we've already published our July 2025 Prime Day predictions report to give you early insights, go into a lot more detail than that and than what we've covered on this webinar. So you can scan this QR code. The report is free. It's available on our website, and you can download that, give it a quick read. We will publish another post Prime Day report after the event. Now, let's summarize. We've gone through a lot of interesting things. We've had a couple of polls, and just consolidating everything you want to walk away with. First section, we talked about tariffs and we talked about overall strategy. So we saw there is no concrete evidence of tariffs already impacting product prices. Now, this is an evolving space, so we want to watch out for future trends. But so far, we don't see any concrete evidence. There are, however, nuances within the 1P and 3P models. The second one was on global growth and expansion. So we saw there's a lot of opportunity out there outside of Amazon US as well. It's $345 billion markets by combining the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Canada. So UK and Germany are the bigger ones, a lot of growth happening there. So there's an opportunity for brands and sellers to enter that market. So Shopper Intelligence can help you by really seeing where the exact opportunity for your business is and what categories you want to prioritize in there. Then the third one, we spoke on Prime Day planning and generally promotional planning. For the first time, it's a 4-day window, and there are AI tools and customized product groups that we can help you with to understand where the demand is, optimize your retail media spend, and just figure out those consumer trends before they peak. Now, tracking brand visibility and competitive sets and performance in real time is something you can do with Shop Intelligence. Now, we'll just pause here to take any questions, and feel free to just throw them in the chat if you haven't done that already during the webinar, but we'll try to get to as many questions as possible.
Yeah, Sam, I'm just going to step in here. There are a few that have come through already. One, from the data that we've shown, tariffs have not had a big impact on pricing, but are we expecting pricing to go up on Amazon US in the near future?
That's a good question, and it's quite a broad question. From the data we've seen, we know that so far there's no concrete evidence, right? But in the future, we do need to monitor it. It is expected that the prices will go up. What I am keen to check is how it affects 1P businesses versus 3P businesses, and if it goes up for both models at a similar amount. So that's what I'm very interested in seeing it. It's hard, they most probably will, but it's a space we need to watch out for.
All right, so we have another question. Which non-US market would you prioritize if you're a beauty brand operating as an IP, as a first P, sorry, 1P?
If you're a beauty brand operating as 1P, yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be between Amazon UK or Amazon Germany. Actually also Amazon Canada if I'm already in the US, because it's very easy, speaking from a logistics point of view and a language point of view, low complexity, and you can easily enter the Amazon Canada market. But if I'm really looking into European expansion, I would probably choose either UK and Germany, since they represent the largest size of opportunity. And UK is actually easier from a content perspective to have all, you already have that content in English. So creating those listings are much easier in UK. So I'd probably start there.
Nice, thank you. And lastly, or well, so far from what I've seen come through, are you expecting the 4-day Prime Day to be better than July 2024 now that it's 4 days?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this when I was talking about Prime Day, that it should be better. But last year we saw roughly about $13 billion of sales on Prime in July Prime Day. It was lower in October. So this year we are expecting it to be between like 16 to 20 billion, but not, so it'll be the largest Prime Day ever, but still not doubling the overall retail sales as last year. So it should be an interesting event. We should see a lot of opportunity. The uh, one thing we saw a lot of brands do last year was they would advertise in the beginning and towards the end of the Prime Day event. But now with the 4 day event, there are a lot more tactics to be worked on. And looking into some real-time data would help solve or help inform those tactics,
Real-time data, which we have.
which we have.
Yes. Okay, so just as we wrap up, I see we're just now 5:45. Just so everyone, as a reminder, Similarweb, as I mentioned before, we are the leading company for understanding what's happening in the digital world, and we're able to do that through a suite of digital products and solutions, including web intelligence, shopper intelligence, app intelligence, stock intelligence, and more. And ultimately, what we want you to go away with is understanding that even though the marketing is changing fast and your consumers are changing, we have the competitive and comprehensive digital intelligence that you need to win. If you have any questions or want to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. And we're here to support that and continue the conversation. Thank you, everyone, for joining.